What if a single incident lasting only minutes could change the course of history? What if that incident, shrouded in confusion, miscommunication, and mystery, led to the deaths of over 58,000 Americans and millions of Vietnamese? And what if the event that triggered a full-scale war might never have happened at all? Welcome to Old Topic, where we unravel the secrets of the past. Today, we dive deep into one of the most controversial moments in American military history, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. So, what really happened on those dark waters in 1964? The story begins in the early 1960s, in the shadow of the Cold War. Tensions were high across the globe, and the United States, determined to stop the spread of communism, had begun to turn its attention toward a small, divided country in Southeast Asia, Vietnam. At the time, Vietnam was split into two, the Communist North, led by Ho Chi Minh, and the anti-Communist South, backed heavily by the United States. The U.S. had been sending advisors and support to the South for years. But by 1964, American leaders were looking for a reason to escalate their involvement. That reason came, or so it seemed, on the nights of August 2nd and August 4th, in the dark, choppy waters of the Gulf of Tonkin. On August 2nd, 1964, the USS Maddox, a U.S. Navy destroyer, was patrolling the international waters of the Gulf of Tonkin just off the coast of North Vietnam. The ship was on what was known as a De Soto patrol, a mission combining electronic intelligence gathering and surveillance. It was also supporting covert South Vietnamese operations along the North's coastline. According to the official U.S. account, 3 North Vietnamese torpedo boats approached the Maddox and opened fire. The Maddox returned fire, and with the help of aircraft from the nearby USS Ticonderoga, the U.S. claimed to have damaged the enemy boats and suffered only minor damage itself. But even this first incident has layers of complexity. The Maddox was sailing close to hostile territory and, in the context of secret South Vietnamese raids, the North Vietnamese may have believed the destroyer was part of those attacks. Still, the August 2nd confrontation was real, but what followed 2 nights later is where the real mystery begins. On the night of August 4th, the USS Maddox, now joined by a second destroyer, the USS Turner Joy, reported another attack. Sonar operators detected what they believed were incoming torpedoes. The ships maneuvered aggressively, fired into the darkness, and radioed back to Washington that they were under attack. But the situation was chaotic. Radar returns were confusing, sonar contacts were inconclusive, and the weather was rough. No sailors were injured, no enemy ships were seen, and no physical evidence of an attack was ever recovered. In real time, doubts began to emerge. Captain John Herrick, the commander of the 2 destroyers, soon sent a follow-up message stating that the second attack might not have happened. He wrote that freak weather effects on radar and overeager sonar men may have accounted for many reports. Even President Lyndon B. Johnson, upon hearing the reports, reportedly said, "Those dumb, stupid sailors were just shooting at flying fish." Yet despite the uncertainty, within 48 hours of the reported second attack, President Johnson addressed the American public. He declared that U.S. ships had been attacked twice in international waters, and that the U.S. would respond. On August 7th, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, with only 2 dissenting votes. This gave Johnson broad authority to escalate U.S. military involvement in Vietnam without a formal declaration of war. Almost overnight, the United States committed itself fully to the Vietnam conflict. Troop numbers surged, bombing campaigns intensified, and the war that followed would last over a decade, claiming millions of lives and deeply dividing American society. But as time passed, more and more questions were raised about the Gulf of Tonkin. In 1971, the Pentagon Papers, a classified study of U.S. involvement in Vietnam, were leaked to the press. These documents revealed that the Johnson administration had doubts about the second attack, even as it was publicly justifying military action. Later, in 2005, the National Security Agency declassified a top-secret internal report that concluded the August 4th attack never happened. The NSA's historical analysis stated that no attack happened that night. The radar and sonar returns had been misinterpreted. There were no North Vietnamese boats in the area. So why did the United States move so quickly? Was it a mistake made in the heat of confusion? Or, something more deliberate? Some historians argue that Johnson and his advisors may have seized the ambiguous incident as a convenient pretext to get the support they needed for escalation. Others believe it was simply a tragic miscommunication in the fog of war. What's clear is that the consequences were enormous. The Vietnam War would drag on until 1975. The United States lost over 58,000 soldiers. The Vietnamese, both North and South, suffered millions of casualties, and the war left deep scars on American politics, society, and trust in government. The Gulf of Tonkin incident is now widely viewed as a cautionary tale. It shows how quickly events can spiral out of control when misinformation, political pressure, and military ambition collide. It raises haunting questions. How many wars have been fought based on incomplete or false information? How many lives have been lost in the wake of misunderstanding? To this day, the Gulf of Tonkin remains a symbol of the dangers of unchecked power, the fog of war, and the price of decisions made in the dark. It's a reminder that truth is often the first casualty in conflict, and that history demands not just memory, but accountability. So next time you hear about a sudden military strike or a breaking news alert that could lead to war, think back to those 2 August nights in 1964. Think about the Maddox, the Turner Joy, and the reports of torpedoes in the water that may have never been there. Because sometimes what we think happened is not what happened at all. This is Old Topic. Thank you for watching.